Lovely. Okay, if everybody's all right with that. Wonderful. Thank you very much. If everybody's got the A5 blue forms. Lovely. So I would like to say thank you to Jackie and Alan for coming along. It's the first time that we've had senior council officers along to our event, so it is a very positive step forwards, and they've been very open about being able to answer questions, so that is a big thank you. And if I can start. So after the judicial review, the council promised to recruit 22 staff to speed up the education, health and care process and to tackle the backlog of annual reviews of EHC plans. We haven't seen anything happening with that. What is happening now, and how is what's the plan to tackle the annual review backlog?
Hello, and thank you for having me. I hope you understand me. If you don't, put your hand up. I'm really pleased to be here, I think. I'm really pleased to be here. And I will be here later on today, so if you want more of it, Alan and I will be back. In terms of that question, it's a really interesting question. The judicial review was an interesting time, interesting in its most interesting term. But you can imagine we were in I think it would be fair to say that the organisation was in a kind of mix between paralysis and panic after the judicial review and during the run-up to the judicial review. And we recognised what it took for parents to do that, and we really didn't want to make it any worse. We didn't want to make it any worse for you. And we also, and we tried really, really hard after that judicial review to respond. And loads of energy and resources went into that, and trying to make sure that we had the right legal paperwork, that people were working on it, and it was really a massive piece of work that was a bit of a detraction, but we absolutely understand why it happened. But the paralysis and the panic that I'm describing that happened after that meant that we didn't really have a real focus on what needed to be done, not for the judicial review, because that was a technical piece of consultation, but what did we need to do to make the service what it needed to be for you and for your kids. And when we talked about the advice that was given to our mayor and the advice that was given to our lead member, Councillor Anna Keane, was 22 staff. But there wasn't any nuance around that. It was 22 caseworkers. We need to get these plans working. And in reality, that would have just been a backlog in terms of education psychology and in terms of social care assessments. And the other issue was that there weren't 22 staff out there for us to recruit. So it became chasing those staff became a real problem, because every local authority are also looking to be the best they can in terms of SEND, and they're looking for the same people that we were looking for. And experienced caseworkers are not easy to find. So it became a real challenge. The then Director of Education went, and I was really lucky that Alan came in to work with us. And Alan came in full-time last November, and Alan was able to bring a much more experienced, informed and nuanced look at what actually did we need to do to be as good as we could be. And part of that was looking at some of the promises that we'd made and saying, firstly, was that actually what we needed? And two, was it, what else did we need? So one of the things that we looked at straight away, Alan and I, with Alan's help, was to commission somebody to come in and tell us what is our problem, because although you know what the problems are in terms of your experience, in terms of our system, it needs to be a holistic look at how the system looks and how we resource it and how we structure it. So it's taken some time, but we now have a consultant who really knows SEND. We've had a report that enabled us, that Alan has done, that enabled us to understand what the problem is. So there was other things that we'd done during that time as well. So what we did do last year, and we can agree a certain amount of money for the council. Anything above that, it needs to be done by councillors. So within our delegation, we put money into some increased social care capacity. We put £380,000 into casework, and we've been trying to recruit those caseworkers. So just 6 that we were trying to recruit since last November. Took us till May to get them into post, and it took 2 rounds of recruitment for us to get 6. And the other thing that Alan brought to the table was that we needed additional education psychology time as well, so that there was a whole host of things that we needed, not just 20 caseworkers. So we could have, in effect, went down a line of looking for something that we didn't need and maybe spending money that we do need to spend somewhere else on something that wouldn't have been helpful to you and wouldn't have been helpful to us. So strategically, we're in a much better place, and I can talk about that. Alan can talk about the technical details much better than me. But in terms of the strategic picture, I've got somebody that I really have confidence in, who has an understanding of the landscape and has been able to put together a strategic approach to how we want to invest our money. And the other thing that we've been able to do, again through our delegation, is 2 things. We've been able to put that structural and strategic plan to our cabinet, and it's going to cabinet on the 2nd of July. But we have been able to start the recruitment for that within our delegation, so that we can start the ball rolling, and the anticipation that our wonderful councillors will sign off that report that's coming to them on the 2nd of July to enable us to make a start on getting this service structure that you need to have in place to enable your kids to get plans within the timescale that's statutory compliant and better. So that's the strategic bit that's answering that question. But of course, we need to take responsibility for that, and I'm sure your heart's sinking, because at the end of the day, we should have had that knowledge and that strategic nous in place over a year ago, and I can only really apologise to you for that. I'm sorry that it's taken this time. I'm sorry that you're the people who are affected by it, and I am sorry from the bottom of my heart that this has impacted on you and your children.
Not good enough, not good enough. Hang on. We will have the opportunity to ask questions.
I'm going to pass to Alan to just answer the technicalities around the backlog around the EHCP plans.
Thanks, Jackie, and thanks, Nick. I've had quite a build-up there. I've been somebody who's managed at director or assistant director level SEND services for over 20 years, so I've got a lot of experience in this area. And it means, to a degree, I can pick and choose where I work because I work freelance. That's why I'm the temporary Director of Education. I wanted to come to Bristol because we knew there was a problem, but what I also saw in talking to Jackie and colleagues here was there was a real will to fix it and an openness to apologise and say we need to work together to do this and get it right. Where I have been successful in getting things right in my time managing SEND, more than anything else, more than the tactical knowledge, it's been listening to people. And what I do in my freelance role is come to places like Bristol and listen. And I've listened to Nick. We're here today to listen to you. I've listened to my professional colleagues in education and in health and in social care to see how together we can make it work. And the plans that Jackie has talked about to put a lot more money into this, to put a lot more people at desks, people talking to you, people listening to you, is a plan that I believe in and I wouldn't be here if I didn't think Bristol was committed to doing that. On the technical side, what's happened? The judicial review had an impact for everybody in this room. At the same time, we had an 80% increase in requests for statutory assessment. We did not have an 80% increase in the staff to deal with those, and we all know the impact that has had. What Jackie has described is the way we have focused on that. In the past, there was a focus on transitioning statements to plans at a cost to processing annual reviews. So the annual review backlog built up here because people are trying to focus on new assessments, for example, and those transitions. Bristol isn't the only place where that's happened, but it's reached a really serious point here. So we've got, as well as the caseworkers who have been employed, we have engaged freelance plan writers whose job is to run through those. So we're now doing workshops every week. We are performance managing that, so we have a target of turning over 100 a week. We aim to have the backlog of annual reviews completed by the end of the year. So there's a target, there's a commitment, there's, I hope, a transparency about our commitment to get this done. We aim through the additional resources which Jackie has talked about and the councillors' decisions which will enable us to appoint more people to get to a steady state so that we are above national performance. The national performance for getting assessments done in 20 weeks is about 60%. We are well below that at the moment. 2 years ago, we were well above. Well above. We were 88%. We can get there again. And that is the real commitment, to be what we call top quartile performance. In other words, in the top quarter of local authorities across the country. We've been there before, we can do it again.
Thank you very much for frank comments, and thank you very much for the apology. I think there will be some questions, as you heard. I just wanted to follow up on that, on the other issue of accountability, really. We're trying to get past the backlog. One of the questions that we hear all the time, how do we make sure that our children actually get the provision that is specified in the EHC? Or in the forms that, because it's one thing to say they need this, it's another thing to deliver this. Who is going to be responsible? Because sometimes the schools, very often the schools aren't delivering this. Should it be the caseworkers who are saying this is how the provision, where does the accountability sit?
It's teamwork. The accountability of schools isn't to me. Local authorities don't control schools, either those which are maintained or those which are academies. What we do is influence them, and we set up systems so that schools work together with us and with you and with parent carers to make sure that accountability is there. The national policy doesn't really put that in place, and I know that because I work in lots of places. Similar questions come up. What we are keen to do is have the resource, and it comes back again to the boots on the ground, to have the resource, to have the people to work with schools, and particularly to work with SENCOs. So for us, the accountability, and in the schools, the accountability is very much with the SENCO. It's a key role in the school. They had support in the past, and the context of this, of course, is nationally a policy of austerity, which meant that funding to councils has been reduced significantly. And here we're looking to buck the trend and put the resource back. That resource needs to support SENCOs in schools because they need to have better networks to support each other, like your network supporting yourselves. SENCOs need the same. We need educational psychologists not just for doing statutory assessments that go into the EHCP, but also because of their professional training. They can contribute to what happens in the classroom, in schools, and that SENCOs can influence schools really effectively, giving your children's teachers the confidence and the skills. So there are not high levels of exclusions, there are not high levels of absence from school, there are not part-time tables for children with special educational needs. We know all those things happen and we know their problems, and those are indicators to us that we really need to change. We want fewer exclusions. We've done well with permanent exclusions, but fixed-term exclusions still happen and they need to reduce. Attendance needs to get better. Timetables need to be full-time. All those things are to do with how the accountability of schools actually makes a difference. So giving the confidence in schools through working with SENCOs, through the support plan that you're talking about today, that's a benefit that already, through joint work with Parent Carer Forum, we've been able to move forward on. SENCOs are eating that up with enthusiasm, and the trials on that are looking really good, I think. So a toolkit for schools which gives practical help in schools, helps them give confidence, and then they can look me in the eye and say, yes, I am accountable. In law, they don't have to do that. But because we are putting together a culture and an atmosphere of partnership, that's what we want to build, that sense of we look each other in the eye and say, this is me, this is what I do, hold me to account.
Thank you. If I leave you with this microphone, I will go find some questions.
Hello everyone, my name's Suzanne. I am a parent carer. I have gone through the EHCP process with my son over the last year, and I thank you for your assurances that something is being done. Listening to what you've said, it seems to me that since the judicial review, which was brought forward because the system was completely broken and not doing anything for our children, you have paid money to a consultant to tell you that the system was broken. You've made a commitment to get 22 more caseworkers, which you've then decided you don't want to do. You've recognised that you need more educational psychologists and more social workers, and you haven't employed them. You've said that you're going to employ freelance caseworkers to churn out 100 EHCPs a week. Having seen one of your senior caseworkers churn out an EHCP for my child, which was the most appalling cut and paste piece of crap that I have ever come across, I would have to say that if you are going to have 100 a week, you need to make sure that those EHCPs are worth the paper they're printed on. They need to actually be put together with care. They need to refer to all the reports. They need to include the wishes of the parent. They need to speak to the schools, because simply having an EHCP does not mean that that child is getting any level of appropriate provision. I had to take 3 days off work and completely rewrite my son's EHCP. And when we went to the draft meeting, my school SENCO came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank God you did that, because we'd be here all day otherwise." Now, it is ridiculous that I, as a parent, have to take 3 days of lost income simply to make sure that the document produced by the council for my child's provision has that provision in it. Now, I know that I am lucky because I am educated and I have the ability to take time off work and be flexible. But 99% of other parent carers out here probably don't. So if you wish to get rid of the backlog, you don't need to just have any old person cutting and pasting from an OT report here and an educational psychologist report there and a social care report here. with completely contrasting and different recommendations in the same report. You need to have somebody who is putting together a coherent, specified, quantified and intelligible report, which is exactly what the SEND Code of Practice says in the HCP should be. It should be a document that anybody who works with that child is able to pick up, read and understand what the child needs, what the child has to have provided, who is going to provide it, when it is going to be provided, how long it is going to be for, and in what situation. So I would respectfully say to you that the situation is in no way any better, and I'm not confident, given what you've said, that the situation is going to change for our children.
And just, I would also reiterate, unfortunately, every single point.
I won't respond to that technically, but I will respond to that. I would absolutely agree with you. That is exactly what you should receive. You've described it exceptionally well, and that is exactly what we would want for our service as well. There were some things that I would like Alan just to pick up on, because I think there's a couple of little misunderstandings there that I want to clarify. But other than that, there's nothing I can say that would disagree with what you said.
And yeah, we are broadly in agreement. Things have got to be, our processing has got to be to time, but it's no good if it's not quality as well. So we are putting in place quality standards for the production of EHCPs, and in the past that has been one of the things I think that has been something we need to balance with the speed at which the processing is done. Some of the things that we have promised to do we have not done, others we have done. We have taken professional views not only about what was clearly a problem, but what was less clear about the solution. Jack, and you talked earlier about the solution being found in the mix of roles that's now in the proposals going to Cabinet, rather than the 22 roles of the same kind. In my view, when I arrived here towards the end of last year, that wasn't going to solve the problem, and it needed that more nuanced approach, I think, to get underneath the numbers to find out what the solutions were really going to be. We share a confidence that that's going to be the place. Has it had an impact yet? Not enough. We're starting to see the annual review backlog reducing. You have probably not seen a noticeable impact of that yet. The timescale I've talked about has been towards the end of the calendar year. So, no, not enough has been done. It may be too late. Our undertaking is it's not too little.
Can I just pick up again, and before we go to another question? You quite rightly pointed out there that we had we've got a consultant and we've used money on that, and we've took time to do that. We're asking for quite a substantial investment from our counsellors, and it had to be evidenced. We have to put a good case together to allow our counsellors to make a balanced judgment, because they will make a judgment about that, and they'll have to take the money from somewhere else. And so it's right that we put the facts before them with a really strong evidence base, and it is not just a guess of what we need to do. It is our best endeavours to give a rationale for that. And we get one pop at this Cabinet. We can't go back with a better report in 3 months' time. So I believe it was the right thing to do, to spend the time making sure that we were putting the best possible case.
Since September. We have a question, Sally. You'll have an opportunity to ask a question, but we've got another one over here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a parent carer. My daughter has, she's 16, she has epilepsy, autism, and now a mental health problem. Regarding the turnover since annual review of the HCPs this year, we've waited 5 months, we've just got it through. and it is an exact copy of the previous EHCP with not even the date on the cover changed. So it's taken 5 months for nothing to happen. 16, it's a really crucial time for her. You talk about starting the ball rolling and making a start and listening to people. That sounds nice, but I kind of want services. I don't want just a few woolly words. You know, it all sounds lovely, but we need services, delivery of statutory services. The SEN Code of Practice details provision and practice. It's existed for a long time. You guys are the professionals, you know the law, it should be put in place. And as much as hearing our voice is all very well, what difference does that make? What difference does it make? It's your job to put the stuff in place, not for us to come to buffets, not to talk and chat and go to support meetings. Our kids need the services, statutory, by law, put in place, delivered. Otherwise you end up with kids that are just destroyed, like mine is. And I just want to ask, it's not that the system doesn't work very well. In my experience, it's not even dysfunctional. It is non-existent. We haven't received what we need to receive at all. At all. In fact, it's been damaging. Not very good, not just slow, not just not there. She's been damaged by it. And I just wonder if you're expecting in the future any cases of claims for compensation for children whose lives have been destroyed and their education non-existent.
What can I say?
I think what we've heard there is an illustration of how serious the problems have been, and in some cases continue to be. We have not here been about a quick fix, because it's about the depth and breadth of something which has been, in words I just heard, more than dysfunctional. We're not here to deny that. We're not here to say it's easy or simple. We're here to say it's complex. We have, I think, understood the complexity. We're understanding more of that today, and we're here to do complicated things which will take time. And we will be back, or my successor will be back in a place like this to hear if you think it has worked over time during the rest of this year.
Could you answer the question about whether you foresee cases of compensation review?
We have a number of complaints. Some of those are resolved internally. The potential for some is to go to either judicial review. That has happened, of course, and we've had some threats of that happening again, although it has not. People could go to the Ombudsman and have not. I probably know more about educational law than other people in the room, so I know what history there is around negligence in educational law, and as far as I know, there has still, in all the time, 30 years I've been working in this field, only one case, known as the Phelps case, which was against an educational psychologist many years ago, and that set a precedent for a very high bar for a successful claim. So all I can say is, well, from what I know of the law, I would not expect that. But that doesn't mean I don't expect that people having the experiences you're having will be dissatisfied, will feel they want to complain, and that we must respond to those things.
I just want to say that thank you for listening after the judicial review. You wasn't listening before. You've been forced to listen and to change the way you practice, or attempt to. We were promised in September 20 caseworkers by the Mayor, and we had it watered down to 12, but now it seems six caseworkers. Is that right? And in all that time since September, you've been coming up with some kind of strategy, or you've been investigating what needs to happen. All the time, the statutory time frame for the EHCP process has just gone out of the window. There's parents waiting 30, 40, 50 weeks while you guys have been deciding what needs to be done, rather than putting things into action. Do you think we're getting good value for money from your positions as director and director of service? Have we had value for money this year from you guys?
It's been too slow.
We know it's been too slow, but why has it been so slow? Why has it taken 6 September? Why has everything been put on hold?
So I don't think things have been. I don't think
We were promised 20 caseworkers to try and make things easier for annual reviews, and to bring the council back into legal compliance in the 20 weeks time frame. It's not happened, and you say you've had problems recruiting. We watched the recruitment page on Bristol City Council. You've not been recruiting caseworkers since January. You've given up recruiting.
Well, we have completed a recruitment process.
You had 6.
In my view, the 20 was not the right answer. So, whilst the Mayor was entitled to rely on the officer advice he had last year, the officer advice to members has changed through me. I'm responsible for that. I do not think that, and I've said that 5 minutes ago, I do not think that 20 caseworkers was going to solve all the problems. It needed a range of things. So the money that we're expecting to be committed to solving this problem is much more than the cost of 20 caseworkers. It involves educational psychologists who happen to be very expensive, but happen to be very skilled and very important in the assessment process, social workers, and so on and so on. So the outcome in the end is a greater commitment of resource than what was promised last year. Yes.
In the end.
Well, you saw what in the beginning.
Why is it taking so long?
Because in the beginning you had the wrong answer, and in the end you got the right one.
And why, it's taken 8 months to get to that right answer, and now how long is it going to take to implement those changes so people on the ground are actually seeing things happening? We want action. We're fed up of talk. We're fed up of being listened to. We're fed up of empathy and sympathy. We want action.
So let me tell you what's been happening during that time. So we got £380,000 last October, November to recruit, and we went out to recruit the first 6. That process has been in place. There's been 2 recruitment opportunities to try and do that, and by January we had people recruited. It then took till May for them to leave wherever they were working and come into post. So it was a long drawn out process, and it is a long drawn out process. And it was really, really hard to get that 6. Really hard to get that 6. You can see that from the process in November to May to get them into post, just how long and how difficult that was. So even if we had needed 20, and 6 is nowhere we're ending up, I think the total establishment of caseworkers is what? 18 or 19, I think.
Okay, so bear in mind...
But just to say, right, just to let me finish. So during that time, we've done work on the evidence base of the resource ask that we put into Cabinet. That has took months. We've done work on getting multidisciplinary staff together to look at how bad transition is and how we can make that better. So where were the problems there? So we've done an awful lot of work, and we've just come to the point where we're going to consult with the Parent Forum around a model for an improved transition service, which will hopefully go live at some time in September.
Okay.
We've done work on a capital plan for SEN in schools to look at how can we invest capital so that the school experience for kids better. We've done so that 3 sizable pieces of work looking at how do we put a really good net under this, how can we strategically improve as well as recruiting to the posts that we are recruiting. And we haven't stood still, so at the moment, even though we're waiting for that Cabinet report to be agreed, we've started the recruitment that we are asking for the funding for. And it will take some months to get them into post, but we've made a start on that. So we haven't stood still since September. The difference has been, as a new DCS coming into post last year, is that by having Alan coming into post, I had somebody that actually knew what he was talking about, and from that strategic point of view brought experience from other local authorities to bear, and he could do the work to get us to where we needed to get to. And that's been the big, big difference for us. And has he been valued for money? Yeah, absolutely. He has been valued for money. As far as my post's concerned, I'm responsible for adult services, education services, children's services, public health services, and community safety services in Bristol. I think my portfolio is okay.
Yeah, I think it's quite wide, isn't it?
It's quite wide, and there's real
Priorities.
benefits in that.
I've just got one more thing to say. Sorry, Nick, just one more thing. So you have these 6 new caseworkers. You have an increase in requests for assessment. You have timescales, like mentioned before, going through the roof. And you now think you're going to get through the annual review backlog by the end of the year. It's not making sense. How are those 6 caseworkers going to get through 100 annual reviews a week?
So as I said, the team of casework, that was additional posts, so we already had an existing team of established caseworkers.
You've not coped doing annual reviews for the last 2 years.
Right, and there are plan writers, more plan writers being appointed, and that team of people who are going through the annual reviews are including other people in the department like Alan. So we're bringing a whole group of people together to help us around those annual reviews.
Hi. Yeah, so my name is Kay, I'm a parent carer, and I've also worked in a school as well, in HR as well. But 2 points really. One, I can actually agree with your concept that salaries for caseworkers isn't the answer. 22 caseworkers, I couldn't see the rationale myself personally. And 2, I do understand about the evidence base, because we don't have an evidence base, we can't sustain a program, we can't show, the need, particularly when it comes to diverse groups. That's what I would say. So that point, I would say, what my concern is about what happens at the school level and the skill at the school level and how much is invested in that. One is the parent carer myself, but as I said, I've also worked in the school, and not every child will meet the threshold for that education healthcare plan. I know we're talking about those children at the moment. Some children are on the borderline. So what do we do for those children who don't qualify for that? Even myself as a parent, I've privately paid £750 for my own psychologist report, so I do know they're expensive. And furthermore, I just want to know what are you investing for those, that threshold who don't meet quite that threshold? Am I making my point? Because, the 22 caseworkers wasn't the solution as I could see it.
And you mentioned psychology. We know that parents in some cases have commissioned their own psychologist because there's a waiting list for the local authorities' psychological advice. We've been keen to really hit that and seen the increase in educational psychologists as a critical point, so parents aren't in the position you've been placed in. And on top of that, that we have educational psychologists not simply doing statutory assessment work, but working with schools to address the other question you raised. I've not quite heard that, but the review. Right. So the review of top-up funding has been part of that. The inclusion in education group, which is composed of teachers from schools, SENCOs from schools, and chaired by a deputy head from a Bristol school, has been working on the Bristol support plan. Has been trialled in schools with SENCOs, working together, sharing problems, sharing learning, and supported by educational psychology already, because we have already increased psychology resource within the delegated responsibilities that we're allowed to do. So again, it's one of those things that doesn't change as quickly as we would like, but we're absolutely in our new SEND strategy aiming to support early intervention and the skills for schools and other settings to work on that. So there's confidence in schools, there's a toolkit available, various toolkits available, and support from the autism service and so on to address the points. And I'd say again, when colleagues of ours come back in 6 months or whatever to talk to you, we should be able to talk about the difference that makes and listen to what difference you think that's making.
Hi, my name is Jen. I have a 12-year-old son on week 36 and an 8-year-old daughter on week 43 of the EHCP process. Firstly, I'd like to say I was in the Bristol Schools Forum meeting last month when it was clearly stated that there was a cutback on the spend of educational psychologists, which was resulting in a massive backlog of EHCPs being processed. But what I'd really like to say is we need more accountability, and I've had a look here at the Inclusion and Education Group. One of the members is a head teacher that off-rolled my child, or attempted to. He had no education for 8 months. I don't know why these people are representing our children, because they shouldn't be, some of them. You're passing the buck to Senkos, but I'd like to say the Bristol School Transport team, they refused my child transport. He's been out of school for 8 months. He couldn't walk. Hour-long meltdown on pavements every day. He tried to jump off a motorway bridge. But no, my child tried to kill himself because of your failings, so all the words you are saying today is just wishy-washy nonsense. It's not fair. It has to stop.
And we'd agree that things like that have to stop. There's no disagreement about that. What I said to Schools Forum last time was incorrect, because the report I was reading from was incorrect. As it happens, there's not been a cut to the number of psychologists. There have been other cuts. Who is accountable? We talked about before. The national system doesn't make that clear.
We can't even make sense of the HCP. It's going to tribunal. It's so badly, poorly written. We can't. I'm an educated woman. We can't even make sense of it with the Senko. Why? It's okay saying you're gonna rush out all these EHCPs. Great, but the quality's rubbish. It's not good enough.
So, and the quality as well as the timeliness is one of the things we'll be looking at. I'm sorry yours doesn't seem to be working for you. It would be something...
It's not specified. It doesn't mean... It's not within the law. Who's accountable?
I am accountable for the EHCP because it's within my directorate.
It's just hearing from you. It's not good enough.
We can follow. Okay, that's raising a few things. We've got about 5 minutes left, if we can do.
Hello, I've got a daughter who's 10 in the mainstream school. She's got additional needs. I've got my education healthcare plan right here. There's changes I wanted to make to it. I haven't had a Senko in the school for a long time. She's been on maternity leave. There's not been a replacement. I tried to put in her caseworker for 3 months to attend the meeting with me to get this plan done. Nobody returned my calls. I couldn't get through. You get voicemail, you leave a message. Then you leave another message and another message. Then finally you just say, well, okay, fine, I'll take it to management. You still don't get nothing back. And I've had to go through this myself. Now I want to make amendments to it. I've been told that the deadline has been, you can't make no amendments to it now. So how does it all work? I just don't understand it. So where's the help? I feel like I'm struggling on my own.
So if people are dissatisfied, as I've heard in a number of cases here, dissatisfied with the quality of the EHC plan, what you just heard me say is that is a function of my directorate, and I'm the director, so I'm responsible. In the first place, you would go either to a Senko if you can find one. I hear yours is on maternity leave, and I heard somebody else say theirs was hiding. So I'm recognising that you have problems in finding your Senkos. Most of you shouldn't. Either to the Senko, so if it's within the school, if not the Senko, to the head teacher. If not to the head teacher, to the chair of governors. Through the council, to your caseworker.
I've been through all that process. All of it. The head teacher, she doesn't have the knowledge, she says. She doesn't understand what's going on. Senko's not available. The caseworker doesn't know how to answer her phone or even answer her messages. So how does that work? So, if you've been through the whole of the process,
yeah,
and you're not getting anything back, but you're struggling as a parent to try and get this done, then it doesn't make any sense
So
to me.
the principle is that where something's not working, you go to the next level up to the manager of the
That's the
SEND
pressure
team.
on us.
In the end,
We're the
to
ones
me.
that have these children that's got learning difficulties. Our focus is also on them. How much time do we have for this? Do you understand that? You know, when our child is at home, we've got a routine around them. I don't barely get time to read this. Or if I do, then I'm struggling again because I need to try and fill it out in the amount of time that I've been given.
Can I just speak absolutely honestly? You're telling me about your experiences, which have been horrendous. And the whole fact of the work that we've had to do to get the evidence base to put before our councillors, the work that we've had to do in re-looking at a transition team that will work effectively, the work that we've had to do to look at what the capital strategy is for our special schools and our SEND provision, is because we know this is bad for you. And the honest answer is, it's not going to get any better for the next few months until, please, I'm just really trying to be honest. It's not going to get any better until we can get the posts that we're recruiting for in, and that there's enough space and time for people to do their job properly, for you to get good quality responses, for you to get good quality reviews. And I could tell you I could come here and I could give you platitudes, and I really, really didn't want to do that. I won't insult your intelligence by that, or your experience. The reality is, we know that this is broken. We're trying our best to fix it. We're trying to get the amount of money, which is absolutely huge, to make it better.
Well, you can make
And
it
we're
better
doing the best.
for the future children. Hopefully, you will have it better. But what about the ones
No, we
now?
want it better for your
It's
kids
not
now.
going to work for her now because this is done.
Right, that won't be the last look your child will get at that
I
plan.
have to have a secondary school in place.
Right, so
Where's her caseworker? I just, I don't know what to do.
That's one thing I'll put through. One thing I have been flagged to flag up supportive parents, which there is a new service being delivered that, to a certain extent, will be the place that you can go. Here, for everybody, that does raise the questions. This is what those forms are about. This is why I spent a lot of time saying, write your issues on those forms. We can gather them together for specific things. We can go to the SEND manager. We can put these things through. If you let us know, we can do that, and we can point you in the right direction as well. We are running out of time, I'm afraid. So if you've already asked a question, I'm sorry, Suzanne, we can talk about that later.
Well, actually, it's not a completely different thing. I think it's very important.
You've already had a chance of a question. I don't want to rule out somebody else who hasn't.
Hi, I'm sort of relatively new to the SEN world. I'm not used to a microphone, is that right? It's okay. So my child is just finishing secondary school and had a late diagnosis of ASD. Got diagnosed eventually last year, at which point I asked Senko if she could have an educational healthcare plan. We have just been told we will get the draft, so it's taken that long. She's doing her exams at the moment, so hopefully we'll get one in time for college. So there's that issue with the educational healthcare plan, but also when my child went to secondary school, I wasn't looking for SEN provision. As a side, I've worked for sort of 20 years as a professional in disability and mental health, and I'm absolutely astonished at how discriminatory the schools that my daughter has been to too. One of which is in Bristol, the one that she's currently at. I'm absolutely astonished at from the Senko downwards. Having said that, there's a few TAs that have been very good, but especially the Senko middle management, I would say, who are so discriminatory. I'm just being completely shocked, really, about their lack of understanding around special needs, especially autism. And in the process of my daughter going through the last 3 years of secondary school, that's a woman over there said, she's been destroyed by the education system. And a lot of that isn't about money, actually. It's about empathy, understanding, professional development, and sticking to that and being accountable for them. Yeah. It's absolutely appalling, actually, the way that my daughter's been treated.
25 years ago, I was a complaining parent who moved his son from a school to another school out of lack of concern, and up to that point I'd always, from my professional point of view, said to parents, never do that, it's always to be solved in school. In our own family, I found that really, really difficult. So I've had some of that experience myself. We talked earlier on today about Senko's and the position they're in. Actually, and we talked too about the difficulty of recruiting to specialist posts in the local authority. Schools have the same issues, and head teachers say to me, it's hard to recruit Senkos. So that's part of what we're trying to fix, and the better support for Senkos that we want to put in place, we're intending to put in place, should be have an outcome to address the sort of problems you described, and some other parents here, some other carers here have also talked about the confidence, skill levels, and the quality of responses they get from the schools. Not because they don't care, maybe they don't have skills, maybe they don't have confidence, maybe they feel pressurised. We need to get under all that and provide better support. Absolutely agree.
Thank you to everybody. I'm really sorry we are out of time.